We're glad to have you with us. We're going to be finishing up Ecclesiastes chapter 11 today, and we're going to be talking about our youth, and we're going to be talking about the sunshine. And it is a bright, shiny day today. So join me as we finish up Ecclesiastes chapter 11 as we look from verses 7 through 10. Have you ever had a time, or you've ever thought about what you're going to do when you retire? What are you going to do when you get to your golden years? What are you going to do when, well, if we ever save up enough money, we'll do this, or if I get in the right house, I'll do this, or I get the right job, I'll do this or that. Well, in today's word, as we look at Ecclesiastes chapter 11, we're going to finish it up, and we're going to be talking about what do we need to do? How do we enjoy everyday life? So join with me as I read Ecclesiastes verses 7 through 8. And I think what I'll do, I'm just going to read a verse or two at a time, and then we'll break these verses down. But the first part of Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 7, we read this. It says, "Light is sweet, and it is pleasing for the eyes to see the sun." Now, I started to wear my sunglasses as I was preaching this or giving this devotion, because, man, the sun is really bearing down out here in this playground, and there's not many shade trees here. But as we look at this verse here, we need to think about, every day we get out of bed, and every day the sun shines on our morning, we need to not take that for granted. And I think that's just as simple as what he's saying here in this one verse. But as we look at verse 8, and two parts of verse 8. First one, we need to enjoy the sun because the sun is sweet. But verse 8, the first part of it, we need to enjoy every year of our lives. Look with me as I read verse 8. "Indeed, if someone lives many years, let him rejoice in all of them." Let him rejoice in all of them. And I think about the years. I think about the years of a child. And you can watch children play on this playground here, and you just wonder what's going through their mind. There's pretty colors on this playground. The playground's safe. There's wood chips here, cypress chips, so they won't hurt and stumble and fall, or when they stumble and fall, they won't get hurt. But for a child, it's the mind is where they find their enjoyment. And then I think about adolescents. The adolescents, they hold their joy. Where they hold their joys, all of a sudden now they start seeing a little bit of freedom that they may get. They start experiencing relationships, boyfriends, girlfriends. They start looking at things that they like and those type things. And then all of a sudden we see young adulthood. In young adulthood, we are getting married. We're enjoying the time when we are married. We're enjoying the time of our young married lives, and we're having children and watching those children grow up and things like that. And then you become to what I call the senior years, your senior sainthood, and those are the times when you can reflect back and you look at your grandchildren and just love your grandchildren to death. But as I think about those in Ecclesiastes, these different things that we've talked about, what we do here in our senior years, now we get to reap all of the things that we sowed in the past. And just like we talked about in the last lesson, the first part of Ecclesiastes 11, we need to sow seed, and we need to sow lots of seed in different places, in different fields, as a farmer would do, because you don't know what seed's going to grow and what seed's not going to grow, or what seed's going to produce and what seed won't produce. I know this: if you don't sow any seed, you will never reap any seed. So we need to find joy in all facets of our life. But the last part of verse 8, it says, "And let him remember that the days of darkness, since they will be many, all that is futile." We need to understand that there are dark days ahead. There are dark days that are coming. And what do we mean by dark days ahead coming? I know for some, even for me, sometimes it's a challenge just to roll out of bed. We were younger, we'd jump out of bed, we would go. And now we roll out of bed, and there may come a day when you can't roll out of bed. Our eyesight goes away. I'm wearing glasses. I have to wear glasses, so I have to read. I've worn glasses for many years, but I used to read them just so I could see because of stigmatism. Now I wear them because I need them to read. I need to be able to read God's Word. Our hearing goes. I wear hearing aids. Our senses are starting to dull sometimes as we get older. So we need to understand that we need to enjoy every bit of life, from the beginning of life all the way to the dark time of our life when we start getting older. And I don't think he's meaning here that if you're an older person, this is a dark time of your life. I don't think that's what he's meaning at all. I think what he's saying here is life will change, and you need to take advantage of it while you can at a younger age, while you're able to still do things like that. As we look at verses 9 and 10, we need to remember that God's judgment is coming. And I remember this song back in the 80s that come out, and it was a guy by the name of Bobby McFerrin sang it and released it. I want to read these words to you, and you may remember it. I'm not going to sing it, but now there, this is a song I wrote, and I hope and you learn it note for note. Look good, little children, and don't worry, be happy. Now listen to what I say. In your life expect some troubles, and when you worry, you make it double. But don't worry, be happy. And be happy now. That was a song that came out in the 80s, and it was kind of a comical song. And the guy it hit number one in lots of different charts. But what he was saying is, don't worry, be happy. But we need to be happy, but we also need to understand that judgment is coming. Look with me in verse 9. It says, rejoice, young person, while you are young, and let your heart be glad in the days of your youth. We need to live life to its fullest. Live life to its fullest while you're still young. Now, if you'll go back and you'll remember the first part of Ecclesiastes, he was saying under the sun. So he's not saying that we need to live life to its fullest here on and with earthly things. We have to live life to its fullest for godly things. Because there's coming a day when you may not be able to you may not be able to go teach the youth. You may not be able to go to a youth trip. You may not be able to do mission work and travel. I know my wife's grandfather, he's dead and gone now, and Mr. Marable would always go to Belize and he would build churches. And yet he had 2 artificial knees, but yet he would still go until he finally got to a point in his life and his health that he could not go any longer. And sometimes we'll just, I'll wait till the right time. And when the right time comes, then I'll go on a mission trip. That right time may not line up just the way you would have it to do, but we need to be attentive to what God would have us to do and do it early in our life. We need to make wise choices. Look with me in the last part of verse 9. It says, and walk in the ways of your heart and in the desire of your eyes. But know that for all these things will bring you to judgment. I was at a store the other day, and we were talking about salvation and talking about what God would have us to do. And he said this, he said, all you need to do is just follow your heart. Then I looked at him for a second. I said, no, sir, you don't need to just follow your heart. Your heart will lead you astray. Your heart is evil. You need to follow what God would have you to do. And he's saying you need to walk in the ways of your heart, but hopefully your heart is following God. Because understand, whatever you do, judgment day is coming. So we need to make wise choices. But in verse 10 of that, I think it says we need to be happy. We don't need to worry. Look at verse 10 with me. It says, remove sorrow from your heart and put away pain from your flesh, because youth and the prime of life are fleeting. Youth and the time and the prime of your life are fleeting. So don't worry, be happy. Be happy, and the only way you can be happy is to be happy in God's will. That's the way you can be happy. In 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 21, this is what Paul was telling Timothy. He says, don't let anyone despise your youth, but set an example for the believers in speech, conduct, love, faith, and purity. In your young age, you need to set the example. And the only way you can set a godly example is to be in God's Word. The only way to be in God's Word is to take the time to read God's Word and to understand God's Word. And you can't get it by watching some 15-minute little sermonette that somebody like me may do. You need to have that own private, personal time when you get deep in God's Word. And you say, I don't understand it. Find you a Bible that you can understand. Find you a Bible preaching church that'll preach God's Word. Go to a Sunday school class. Start a small group. Talk about it at work. Wherever you're at, Try to understand God's word more and more and more, and let it be just get inside of you and fill you up. The last point I want to make is this: do God's will early. If we want to summarize this whole chapter 11, I think what he's telling us is this: we need to do God's will early in life. Do God's will early in life. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 6. Well, I'm going to go back and read that. That's where we finished off a week ago. It said this: in the morning sow your seed, and the evening do not let your hand rest, because you do not know which will succeed, whether one or the other, or if both of them will be equally good. I think that is the key verse for this whole Ecclesiastes chapter 11, is we need to get up early in the morning. Early in the morning being our early years of our life. We need to sow all we can sow. We need to sow it in different places. We need to be sowing different seed, different mission works as we go out, and different works that God would have us to do. And then we do that, we need to rejoice in that and enjoy that and watch it grow. I mentioned this last week, is when a farmer plants a field, there's nothing more proud in that farmer's eyes as when he drives on that field one day and he looks and all those seed have started popping up and all of them have germinated, and he can just look at those beautiful straight rows and just sit there and imagine, you know, he had to have faith when he planted those seeds that they would pop up. And if they don't pop up, he starts getting worried. But when it does pop up and then it does flourish, and then there's coming a day that farmer will take that seed and he'll plow it, and then he'll fertilize it, and then he'll plow it, and then he'll pull the weeds out of it. And then there's coming harvesting day. And when they'll fill up the trucks and they'll take them to market, and then he will rejoice when he receives his harvest. So as we finish this up, I want us to do this: enjoy life. Enjoy life. Remember that Judgment Day is coming. And also do God's will early in life. Don't wait. Once again, I love you. I hope you found something out of this devotion today that can lift you up and bring meaning to your life. And once again, my contact information will be at the end of this video. And as always, I love you, and may God bless.